The sky was dark and full of snow clouds. Cold winds screamed across the dead planet. Nothing moved, nothing lived, only ice and silence. In a small cave, hidden between two frozen rocks, an alien woman held her child tightly. Her arms were weak, but she refused to let go. Her skin was turning blue, and her lips had no color. She wrapped her thin body around the child, using the last of her strength to protect him. The child was small, no older than 2 seasons, and he cried softly. His breath shallow, she looked at the storm outside, snow falling like sharp blades. They had no fire, no food, no help. Her ship had crashed 3 days ago. She had searched the wreckage, found nothing useful, and walked with her child until her legs gave up. Now she was here, in this crack of a cave. Waiting for death, she kissed her child's cold forehead. His tiny fingers were still moving. But slower now, she whispered. Mama's here. Mama's here. Her voice was broken, her throat dry from the cold air. The child stopped crying for a moment and stared at her with tired eyes. She smiled at him with shaking lips. Then her eyes closed slowly. She had not slept in days. Her body was empty, her heart full of pain. She knew the cold would take her soon. And she knew her baby would follow. But at least they would be together. She wrapped him tighter and closed her eyes. "I'm sorry," she whispered to the wind. "I failed you." Everything became quiet. The snow kept falling, covering the cave. The child made no sound now. The woman's breathing was almost gone. Then something strange happened. There was a sound, not wind, not snow, but footsteps, heavy footsteps. They crunched in the ice. One by one, a shadow appeared at the cave entrance. Tall, strong, moving fast. The shadow bent down, peeking inside. Then a human voice spoke, deep and urgent. Hey, are you alive?" The woman did not answer. The child gave a weak whimper. That was enough. The human crawled into the cave. He wore a thick jacket and a mask that covered his face, but his eyes were sharp. Searching, he touched the woman's neck. Then the baby's face. "Still warm," he muttered. "Barely." He pulled a blanket from his bag, wrapped it around both of them. Then he picked them up, both at once. The woman was light as paper. The child even lighter. The human moved fast, back to his shelter, a broken escape pod with emergency heat. He placed them inside, near the heater. Then he placed heat pads around their bodies. He removed the mask from his face, revealing rough skin and tired eyes. He checked their pulses again, still alive, but barely. "Come on," he said, almost begging. "Don't die on me." The woman stirred, just a little. Her eyes fluttered open. For a second, she saw him, a human male. Strange and warm, she didn't understand. But she felt heat on her face for the first time in days. She looked at her child, who was breathing again, softly, then she passed out. The human stayed awake, watching both of them. He fed the heater. More fuel kept the fire going. He spoke, even though they couldn't answer. "I saw your ship go down," he said. "Didn't think anyone survived." He sighed and looked at the child. "You're lucky I found you." The cave outside filled with more snow, but inside the broken pod there was heat, there was light. There was life. The human sat beside them, holding a blaster in one hand. Outside, the storm grew stronger. Inside, the silence was no longer cold. It was warm, like a breath waiting to return. The woman and her child slept under the same blanket. Their frozen bodies slowly thawed, and for the first time since the crash, they were safe. She didn't know who the human was or why he helped, but fate had given her one more chance. And it had come on human footsteps in the middle of death. Someone had said, "You're not dying tonight." The air was warmer than before, but her body still shook with cold. She blinked slowly, her vision blurry, her thoughts heavy like ice. The soft crackle of fire reached her ears, along with the strange scent of something cooked. She was no longer outside, no longer surrounded by snow. She tried to move, but her muscles screamed in pain. The warmth wrapped around her like a heavy fog, and when she looked down, she saw her child, still sleeping. Held close against her chest, the child's skin was no longer blue. No longer trembling, tears welled up in her eyes. Not from sadness, but from surprise. They were still alive. There was movement near the fire. And her head jerked slightly. A man, the same figure she saw before, passing out, sat cross-legged, poking at a small metal pan over the flames. He was human. She had seen pictures of his kind during war briefings. But never in person. He looked taller than her people. Stronger, his hair messy. His beard rough and unshaved. He wore a patched-up survival suit, scratched and dirty, but working. She watched silently, not moving, her instincts alert. He hadn't seen she was awake yet. He seemed focused on the pan. Muttering something to himself, her fingers tightened around her child slowly. Protectively then, he looked up, and their eyes met. He froze, blinking once, surprised but not afraid. "You're awake," he said, his voice calm, good. She couldn't understand all his words. Her translator was damaged during the crash. Only pieces came through awake, good, safe. She tried to speak, but coughed instead. Her throat dry and raw. He grabbed a bottle and moved closer, slowly, carefully, like someone approaching a wild animal. He placed the bottle near her and backed away. "Water," he said, tapping it gently, "for you." She looked at it, then at him, unsure. He didn't move again, just waited, after a long pause. She reached out and took the bottle, her hands shaking. The water was cold but clean, and it tasted like life. She took only a few sips, then helped her child drink. The human watched quietly, not interrupting. After a while, he spoke again. Slowly, "I'm not your enemy," he said. "Not anymore." She didn't reply, didn't know how. Her people had fought his kind, yes. But she had never held a weapon. She was a farmer's daughter, forced to flee when the war touched her home. Now she was sitting near an old enemy. Alive only because of him. He stood and walked to a corner, pulling a heat pack from a bag and tossing it toward her. "Use this," he said. "It'll help." She didn't move. Still watching him, still unsure if this was real. Why would a human save her and her child? He looked at her again, and for a moment his eyes softened. He pointed to the fire. Then to her. "Warm," he said. Then pointed to himself. "Safe." She tried to understand. Was he telling her to trust him? She hugged her child again and nodded slightly. Hours passed slowly. She stayed close to the fire, using the heat pack on her child first, then herself. The man didn't come too close, but he didn't leave either. He sat, working on some kind of device, maybe a signal booster. Then she noticed something near his bag, a weapon, not a small one, a heavy-duty blaster, military grade. Her body tensed instantly, her heart beating faster. Was this a trap, a trick? He followed her gaze and sighed. "It's not for you," he said. "Only protection." She still didn't understand every word, but she knew enough. His eyes said more than his voice. Tired, honest, broken. Later that night, the child woke and reached out, touching the man's coat. The man froze, but didn't pull away. The child giggled softly, then fell back asleep. She watched the moment in silence, something warm spreading in her chest. This human was a stranger, a soldier, an enemy. But right now, he was also a fire in the snow. And for now, that was enough. The wind outside never stopped, but inside the broken pod, the fire still burned. The woman sat close to it, watching the flames dance, holding her child in her arms. He was sleeping peacefully now, warm and quiet. She had not seen him this calm. Since the crash, the human sat across from her, his back against the cold metal wall. His eyes were half closed, his body still, but his fingers moved slowly as he repaired something. She watched him work in silence, not sure what to say, not sure if she should speak at all. She opened her mouth but stopped again. Then finally tried, her voice soft, cracked. "Who? You?" she asked, her translator blinking weakly. The human looked up, eyebrows raised. Surprised, she spoke. He gave a slow smile. Small and tired. "Dale," he said, pressing his hand to his chest. "Dale Hunter." She didn't understand the second word, but she understood it was his name. She nodded once and touched her own chest. "Lyra," she whispered. "Lyra and baby is Kiri." Dale's eyes moved to the sleeping child, then back to her. "Kiri," he repeated softly. Like testing the word, something in his voice changed. Not pity. Something warmer. She didn't know what to call it. But it made her chest feel strange. She wanted to speak more, to ask more. But the translator sparked suddenly, and her words turned into static. She touched it, tried to fix it, but it was damaged badly. Frustrated, she gave up and lowered her head. Dale stood and crossed the room. Stopping in front of her, he reached out slowly, and she pulled back, her body tense, but he only pointed to her neck. "Can I?" he asked gently. She hesitated, then nodded once. He kneeled, looked at the chip behind her ear, and examined it. "It's fried," he said, mostly to himself. "Old model." He pulled something from his pack. A small box, dusty and old. He opened it and took out a different chip, cleaner, newer. He looked at her again, as if asking permission. She nodded, and he carefully replaced her chip. There was a soft buzz in her ear, and suddenly the words became clearer. She gasped, and her eyes widened. "I can understand you," she whispered. He smiled. "Yeah, it's working." She looked at him, confused. "Why help me?" she asked. "We're enemies." Dale leaned back and sat beside the fire again. He stared at the flames for a long time before speaking. "I was sent to fight your kind," he said. "My ship crashed here too. I saw yours go down 3 days later." Lyra listened without interrupting. "I lost my crew," Dale continued, his voice lower now. "All dead. I thought maybe I'd die here too. But then I saw you." She held her child tighter. "You could have left us," she said, "but you didn't." Dale didn't answer at first. Then he looked up at her, his eyes serious. "I don't know why," he said honestly. "Maybe I was tired of hating." The silence grew between them again. But it was no longer heavy. It was soft, like snow falling on quiet ground. Kiri shifted in her arms, then opened his eyes. Looking around, when he saw Dale, he didn't cry, didn't fear. He only blinked and reached out with one small hand. Lyra watched as her son's fingers touched Dale's jacket. Dale looked surprised, then smiled. "He's strong," Dale said. Just like his mother, Lyra looked away, hiding the red rising in her face. She looked back at Dale and asked, "What now?" Dale shrugged. "We survive." She nodded slowly. "Together." He met her gaze, and for the first time since his crash, he smiled fully. "Yeah," he said. "Together." Outside, the snow kept falling, but inside, something else had started. Not just warmth, not just safety, but something quietly beautiful. The beginning of trust. The night grew darker, colder, but they didn't sleep. The fire burned low, shadows moving across the walls of the broken pod. Dale sat with his blaster close, eyes scanning the entrance again and again. Lyra sat near the child, holding Kiri tightly, but her eyes stayed on Dale. She could feel something in the air. Not just wind, but something alive. A strange sound had reached her ears earlier. Soft but sharp. It didn't belong to the storm. It was the sound of breath, of movement, of something watching. Dale heard it too. He stood and stepped outside. Slowly, carefully. His boots crunched over the snow as he walked toward the hill. The sky was black, and his breath came out in white clouds. Lyra watched from the door, her heart beating faster with every second he was gone. Then suddenly, Dale raised his arm. Stopped and crouched, he saw it, two glowing eyes in the dark. Low to the ground, fast and not alone, he raised his blaster, ready to fire. But before he could shoot, the creature vanished behind a rock. Another sound came from the other side, then another. They were surrounded. Dale ran back toward the pod. Sliding into the doorway, Lyra, he said quickly, "You need to stay low." She didn't ask questions, just grabbed her child and moved to the corner. He checked the power level on the blaster. Low, too low. "What is it?" she whispered. "Night hunters," he said. "Local species, fast. They move in packs." She nodded, remembering stories her people told about the planet's shadows. But she had never seen them before, only heard warnings. The growls came closer, like whispers crawling across the snow. Dale stood in the doorway, scanning with sharp eyes. Lyra looked around, thinking fast. She grabbed a piece of metal from the floor, sharp and broken. "If they get close," she said, "I won't let them touch him." Dale looked at her, surprised by the fire in her voice. "You won't have to," he said. The fire crackled behind them, casting long shadows. Then the first one appeared. Fast and low, its skin like black glass. It jumped toward Dale, but he fired. The light flashed. The blast hit the creature mid-air, sending it crashing into the snow. But two more leaped from the left. Dale fired again, but missed. The creatures rushed the door. Suddenly, Lyra screamed something in her own language. A sharp sound, high and loud, like a warning. The hunters stopped. Confused, Lyra stepped forward. Holding the metal like a blade, she made the sound again. Stronger, more commanding. The creatures froze, then slowly backed away. Dale watched in shock. "What did you do?" he asked. She lowered her voice, eyes locked on the shadows. "My people learned their weakness long ago," she said. "It's sound." The creatures disappeared into the snow, but the silence didn't feel safe yet. Dale stepped out, checking the area once more. Nothing moved, but he didn't trust it. He stayed out a few more minutes before returning. Inside, Lyra was holding her child again. Shaking a little, Dale placed his blaster on the ground and sat near her. "You saved us," he said quietly. "No," she replied. "We saved each other." For a while, they didn't speak. Then Dale whispered, "I thought I'd die alone out here." Lyra looked at him and said, "You're not alone anymore. Outside." The night hunters stayed hidden in the dark, but inside were fire still. Burned and breath still warmed the air. Two survivors, once enemies, now guarded something more than life. They guarded each other. The morning came slowly, a faint gray light touching the snow-covered land. Inside the broken pod, the fire was almost out, and the warmth had faded. Dale rubbed his arms and tossed another heat stick into the burner. It hissed to life again. Soft orange glow spreading across the metal walls. Lyra opened her eyes and looked around quickly, her instinct sharp. Her child was still sleeping. And Dale was already up, watching the hills from the doorway. She stood and joined him, both wrapped in blankets, both silent for a long moment. Then Dale pointed to the far ridge. "There," he said. "That's where the crash site is." Lyra followed his finger and saw the broken remains of something in the distance. "Your ship?" she asked. Dale nodded. "I didn't reach it before. Too many storms, too many hunters. But," he added, "there might still be a medkit, food, maybe even a working beacon." Lyra's eyes dropped to her child, then back to Dale. Kiri needs medicine, she whispered. He's warm now, but not well. Dale saw the worry in her eyes and gave a small nod. Then we go, he said. We go together. They packed quickly, sharing supplies, half of everything. Dale gave her a knife, kept his blaster for himself. Lyra wrapped Kiri tightly and carried him on her back. Then they stepped out into the cold again, one careful step at a time. The wind had slowed, but the air still bit at their faces. Snow crunched under their feet, and silence surrounded them like a fog. They walked for hours, stopping only when Kiri coughed or cried. Dale would check the map on his broken scanner, shaking it like it owed him something. At one point, Lyra asked, "How did your people get here?" Dale didn't answer right away. He kept walking, eyes fixed ahead. Then he finally said, "We were hunting." Lyra looked at him, not surprised, but not angry either. "You mean ooze?" she said. Dale nodded. "Yeah, you're kind, but I didn't want to be part of it anymore." She was quiet, thinking my people were running. She said, "From war, from fire, from death." Dale stopped, looked at her, and for the first time he truly saw her not as an alien, but as a mother, a survivor, a person I lost someone to, he said, quietly. A little sister, back on Earth. Lyra's steps slowed. She would have been about Kiri's age, Dale added. There was pain in his voice, raw and sharp. Lyra didn't know what to say, so she just whispered, "I'm sorry." Dale gave a small nod, then kept walking. But the space between them felt different now, closer, softer, real. As they climbed the ridge, the wind picked up again, harder this time. Kiri cried against her back, and Lyra stumbled, knees hitting the snow. Dale turned fast and caught her before she fell completely. "You okay?" he asked. She looked at him with tired eyes. "Just need to rest." They stopped under a rock overhang, using it as a windbreak. Dale gave Kiri a protein strip to chew, which the child grabbed like treasure. Lyra leaned back against the stone, her head resting on her knees. She was exhausted. But she was not alone when they reached the crash site hours later. The sun was already dipping low. The ship's skeleton stood tall and broken like the bones of a giant. Dale moved first, checking for traps, for movement, for danger. Then he waved her forward. Inside, it was dark, cold, but safe. He found the medkit, first, half empty, but still useful. Then he opened a locked drawer and pulled out a small device. The emergency beacon cracked. "But still blinking. We have a signal," he said. "They'll come for me." Lyra looked at him carefully. "And what about us?" she asked. He paused, blinking slowly. "I don't know yet," he replied. "But I won't let them hurt you." That night, they stayed inside the broken ship, fireless, quiet. Lyra held her child as he slept. Dale sat near the entrance, his blaster across his lap. Outside, wolves howled in the snow. But inside, the warmth was not from fire. It was from choice, from something growing in a world where nothing made sense. They had only each other, two strangers, now walking the same path, and tomorrow someone would answer that blinking beacon, and when they did, everything would change again. The beacon kept blinking, a soft red light that pulsed like a heartbeat. Dale stared at it without blinking, knowing what it meant. Someone would come. Maybe tomorrow, maybe sooner. And when they did, they'd ask questions, demand answers, and take control. He stood near the broken window of the ship, looking out at the frozen wasteland. Behind him, Lyra sat on the floor, feeding Kiri with pieces of dried fruit. The child was stronger now, his eyes brighter, his skin no longer gray. It should have made Dale happy, but it only made him feel the weight pressing on his chest. Lyra looked up and saw the worry on his face. She didn't ask anything at first, just watched him, but after some time, she walked To his side, "They're coming, aren't they?" She said softly. He nodded, still staring into the distance. "My people," he said. "They'll follow the signal." She was quiet, then asked, "What will they do when they see us?" He didn't answer right away. "They'll want you. Gone," he finally said. "Captured, maybe worse." Lyra held Kiri tighter, stepping back as if the cold wind had hit her chest. "Will you let them?" she asked, not in anger, but in fear. Dale turned to her, his voice low and steady. "No," he said. "I won't." Lyra studied his face, the scars, the tired eyes, the pain. "Why?" she asked. "You don't owe us anything." He looked at Kiri, then at her. "You gave me something I thought I lost." He said, "Purpose." That night, Dale couldn't sleep. He stayed awake by the entrance of the wreck, listening to every sound. His blaster rested in his lap, and his hand never left it. The beacon blinked every 5 seconds, like a silent countdown. He remembered the last time he saw a child this small. His sister, dying in a burning city, screaming for someone to help. No one had come, no one had cared. That night, Dale had promised he would never turn away again. Now he had a choice: keep the promise or follow orders. Protect the child and mother he just met, or hand them over to the same system that destroyed his home. In the morning, Lyra was already packing what little they had. She didn't wait for orders, didn't ask what to do. She was ready to run. Dale didn't stop her, but he didn't move either. "You don't have to go," he said. "Not yet." She looked at him with wide, tired eyes. "You can't protect us from a ship full of soldiers," she whispered. Dale nodded slowly, then smiled in a way she didn't expect. "Maybe not," he said, "but I can try." He walked to the control panel, opened a small hatch, and pulled out the beacon's core with a screwdriver and a few wires. He rewired it. "What are you doing?" Lyra asked, confused. "Delaying the signal," he replied. "Buying time, but why?" she asked. "You'll be marked as a traitor." Dale gave a short laugh. Bitter and honest, "I already was," he said. "The moment I chose not to pull the trigger." Outside, the sky was turning gray again. Storm clouds building in the distance. They had maybe one day before the signal was noticed again. One day to decide who they really were. One day before the galaxy came knocking inside the wreck. Dale and Lyra sat with Kiri between them. No fire, no comfort. Just quiet breaths and a sense of something deeper than survival. Dale looked at her, then at the child. "If I have to stand in front of them and fight, I will," he said. "And?" "I'll stand with you," she answered, without fear. Enemies no longer. Now a team, now a family. The storm came early. Snow slammed against the walls of the wreck, howling like a beast trying to tear them apart. Inside, the cold was sharp again, biting their skin, freezing their bones. But none of them spoke about the cold. All their thoughts were on the sound that had broken the silence an hour ago. A sharp beep, distant but real, a signal response. Someone was coming. Not maybe, not someday. Now. Dale stood at the edge of the doorway, staring into the gray sky. He could feel it in his chest, the weight. The moment his people would come in dropships, armed and cold like machines. And they wouldn't care about a child's laugh or a woman's quiet strength. Lyra wrapped Kiri close to her body, her eyes dry, her face calm. She had no tears left. "Only choices. I'll go if I must," she said. "But promise me." "He lives." Dale turned to her, shaking his head. "You're not going anywhere." He replied, "Not alone then." The sound came. Engine slow at first, then louder. Cutting through the wind like blades, Dale stepped out into the snow. Gun in hand, heart pounding, he saw the black shape descending from the sky. Heavy and deadly. Behind him, Lyra placed Kiri gently under a blanket. She kissed his forehead and walked to Dale's side. She didn't ask, she didn't beg. She stood next to him like an equal, like someone ready to face the end. The dropship landed hard, kicking snow in all directions. Its doors hissed open. Steam pouring out. 3 armored soldiers stepped out, their faces covered, weapons ready. The one in front removed his helmet, revealing a sharp face and colder eyes. "Lieutenant Dale Hunter," he said, "you're alive." Dale nodded slowly, gun still in hand. "I am," he replied. The man looked past him at Lyra. "You've got something that belongs to Central Command. She doesn't belong to anyone," Dale said, voice steady, "and the child?" The officer asked, "Alien hybrid." "Just a child," Dale answered, "and under my protection," the officer smirked. "You disobeyed direct orders." He said, "Good," Dale replied. A silence fell between them, a tight, dangerous silence. Then the officer raised his hand slowly. Behind him, one of the soldiers aimed his rifle. Lyra's hand went for her blade. Dale raised his blaster, but before anyone could fire, Kiri cried from inside the wreck. It was just a child's cry, soft, confused, scared. But something about it broke the air. Dale stepped forward, gun still aimed. "You shoot," he said. "You make him an orphan." The officer stared at him, calculating. Then slowly he lowered his hand. "What are you doing, sir?" One of the soldiers whispered, "Standing down," he said, "for now." He looked at Dale one last time. "You're off-grid now," he warned. "Don't expect backup. Don't expect mercy." Dale smiled coldly. "I stopped expecting." That long ago, the dropship rose again, lifting into the snowstorm without another word. Dale watched until it vanished, then lowered his weapon. Lyra stood frozen, her heart still racing. Then she ran back inside to Kiri, who reached for her with sleepy arms. Dale followed, closing the door behind him. The fire was out, the heat was gone, but none of that mattered. They were still alive, still together, still free, no orders, no enemies. No war, only choices. Later that night, they sat by a small flame Dale, built from broken wiring and dry cloth. Lyra leaned against him, Kiri resting between them. No one spoke. There was no need. The beacon no longer blinked. The war behind them, the future unknown. But for the first time, none of that felt heavy, because sometimes salvation doesn't come from ships or commands. Sometimes it comes from one step in the snow. One stranger who says no to hate and chooses warmth. Instead,